From the silent, cold intensity of the Grandmaster's chessboard to the fluid, explosive energy of the Tai Chi martial arts ring, Josh Waitzkin takes us on an extraordinary journey into the mechanics of the human mind in his masterpiece, The Art of Learning. This book is far more than a manual for skill acquisition. It is a philosophical memoir that deconstructs the psychological DNA of mastery. Waitzkin, once a world-renowned chess prodigy inspired by the film's Searching for Bobby Fischer, did not stop at the edge of the 64 squares. Instead, he took the universal principles of excellence and applied them to the world of combat sports, becoming a world champion to prove a singular, powerful point. Learning itself is the ultimate skill that transcends all disciplines. In this work, Waitzkin dismantles the myth of natural talent and replaces it with the concept of the incremental mindset and the ability to turn obstacles into creative fuel. He invites us into the state of flow, where time disappears and action becomes an intuitive extension of the subconscious. For Waitzkin, reaching the summit of any field isn't just about grueling hard work. It is about a deep understanding of how our minds react to pressure and building a mental infrastructure that can withstand the storms of elite competition. He doesn't just teach us how to win a match. He teaches us how to become eternal learners who value the process as much as the result. This deep dive on Read and Rise is a calling for anyone who aspires to greatness, whether you are a student, an athlete, or a creator in any field. We will explore the secrets of investment in loss, the art of making smaller circles to achieve microscopic precision, and how to domesticate psychological pressure until it becomes your greatest ally. Prepare to redefine your understanding of intelligence and learn how to master the art of mastery itself. Before we navigate Waitzkin's strategies for achieving mental sovereignty, make sure to subscribe to Read and Rise and turn on the notification bell. Join our ambitious community that doesn't just read, but constantly strives to rise and evolve. Click the subscribe button now, and let's begin our journey into the art of learning. The first core idea: the architecture of belief. Entity versus incremental intelligence. At the very foundation of mastery lies a psychological crossroads that determines whether a person will eventually crumble under pressure or rise through adversity. Waitzkin introduces us to two fundamental worldviews regarding human potential: the entity theory and the incremental theory. Those who subscribe to the entity view believe that intelligence and talent are fixed traits. You either have it or you don't. While this might sound harmless, Waitzkin argues it is a psychological trap. When an entity learner fails, they don't see it as a lack of effort. They see it as a lack of inherent ability. This leads to a fragile ego that avoids challenges to protect the image of being smart or gifted. In contrast, the incremental theory, often referred to as a growth mindset, treats intelligence like a muscle that strengthens through directed strain. For the incremental learner, the process is the prize. They don't view a loss on the chessboard or a fall in the dojo as a verdict on their worth. They view it as essential data for the next level of growth. Waitzkin emphasizes that the road to world-class performance is paved with investment in loss. To master any craft, one must be willing to be a beginner again and again, embracing the discomfort of being bad at something in order to eventually become extraordinary. Waitzkin's own journey from a child chess prodigy to a Tai Chi world champion was a living laboratory for this principle. He realized that the child prodigy label is often a curse because it reinforces the entity theory, making the child terrified of losing their genius status. By consciously shifting his focus from winning to learning, Waitzkin unlocked a level of resilience that allowed him to absorb hits, learn from defeats, and maintain a calm center in the heat of elite competition. He argues that the master is not the one who never fails, but the one who has learned to translate every failure into a sophisticated lesson. For the Read and Rise audience, this is the ultimate paradigm shift. It challenges us to audit our own internal dialogue. Do we retreat when things get difficult because we fear looking unskilled? Or do we lean into the struggle as the only path to evolution? To rise, in Waitzkin's world, is to abandon the safety of being talented for the rugged, rewarding path of becoming better. Mastery is not a destination you reach because of who you are. It is a state you earn because of how you choose to grow. The second core idea, the soft zone and the internal weather. One of the most transformative concepts Josh Waitzkin introduces in The Art of Learning is the distinction between what he calls the hard zone and the soft zone. In the pursuit of mastery, most people believe that peak performance requires a state of rigid, monk-like concentration where the world must be silent and perfect for them to succeed. This is the hard zone, a mental state that is brittle and fragile. If a person in the hard zone is interrupted by a loud noise, a rude opponent, or an unexpected change in the environment, they shatter. Their focus is dependent on external conditions, making them vulnerable to the weather of life. Waitzkin argues that true elite performance requires the soft zone. The soft zone is based on a fundamental acceptance of imperfection and chaos. Instead of fighting against a distraction, you incorporate it into your flow. If a siren blares while you are thinking, you don't get angry. You let the sound ripple through your consciousness and use its energy to stay present. It is the difference between a dry twig that snaps in the wind and a blade of grass that bends and returns to its center. For the master, the internal weather must be independent of the external weather. To cultivate this resilience, Waitzkin practiced what he calls intrapersonal psychology. He realized that his best performances came when he was in a state of relaxed intensity. He learned to identify his emotional triggers, the moments when frustration or anger would start to cloud his judgment. Instead of suppressing these emotions, which only creates more tension, he learned to acknowledge them and channel that emotional energy back into the task at hand. He transformed his anger into a heightened state of awareness and his fear into a source of explosive speed. For the Read and Rise audience, this is a masterclass in emotional sovereignty. It teaches us that we cannot control the world, but we can control our reaction to it. If you wait for the perfect moment to study, to create, or to lead, you will be waiting forever. Mastery is the ability to perform at your best even when the conditions are at their worst. To rise is to become psychologically elastic, to be so rooted in your internal calm that the storms of the world only serve to make you more focused and more alive. The third core idea, the power of the foundation, making smaller circles. One of the most profound technical secrets Josh Waitzkin shares in The Art of Learning is a process he calls making smaller circles. In our modern world, we are obsessed with more techniques, more complex moves, and more information. We often skip the basics to reach the flashy, advanced stages. But Waitzkin argues that true mastery is not about knowing 1,000 different moves. It is about knowing a few fundamental principles so deeply that they become invisible and instantaneous. Mastery is the result of taking a large visible motion and condensing its essence into a microscopic internal one. To illustrate this, Waitzkin describes his transition from chess to Tai Chi push hands. He didn't start by learning complex martial arts forms. Instead, he spent months practicing a single, simple push. He practiced it until the mechanical movement disappeared and became a feeling in his nervous system. Once the large circle of the movement was mastered, he began to shrink it. He made the movement smaller, then smaller again, until he could generate the same explosive power with a shift of just a few millimeters. To the outside observer, he wasn't doing anything, but internally, he was executing a complete powerful technique. Waitzkin calls this numbers to leave numbers, or form to leave form. You must learn the rules so well that you can eventually forget them. By focusing on the micro instead of the macro, you develop a level of sensitivity that your opponents cannot match. While they're looking for a big opening, you are operating in the gaps they don't even know exist. This principle applies to everything from writing a sentence to closing a business deal. It is about mastering the fundamental building blocks of your craft so thoroughly that they move from your conscious mind into your subconscious. For the Read and Rise audience, this is a lesson in the depth of simplicity. It challenges the hustle culture that demands constant expansion. It tells us that to rise to the top of your field, you must first go deep into the basement of your basics. Don't be afraid of the repetitive, boring work of the fundamentals. The person who has practiced one punch 10,000 times is far more dangerous than the person who has practiced 10,000 punches once. Mastery is the art of doing the common things uncommonly well. The fourth core idea: mastering the trigger, building the bridge to peak performance. Perhaps the most practical and sought-after strategy in The Art of Learning is Josh Waitzkin's method for accessing the flow state on command. Most people believe that peak performance is a stroke of luck, a good day where everything just clicks. Waitzkin argues that waiting for inspiration is for amateurs. Masters build a trigger to summon their best selves at a moment's notice. This is the art of building a pre-performance routine, a psychological bridge that connects your normal, everyday state to a state of intense, relaxed presence. Waitzkin's approach is a sophisticated form of classical conditioning. He suggests identifying a time in your life when you are naturally in a state of serene focus, perhaps when you are playing with your child, listening to a specific piece of music, or going for a morning run. You then attach a series of small, consistent physical actions to that state, like a specific stretch, a snack, and a deep breath. By repeating this sequence before your favorite activity, your brain begins to associate the physical trigger with the mental high. Eventually, you can perform that same routine before a high-stress meeting or a championship match, and your physiology will automatically shift into that peak state regardless of the pressure. The final step in this process is condensing the trigger. Just as we discussed making smaller circles, Waitzkin teaches us to shrink the routine. If your initial routine takes 30 minutes, you slowly compress it until a single deep breath or a specific thought can trigger the same physiological response. This allows the master to find their center in the middle of a chaotic battle. It is the ability to create a cocoon of concentration that is portable and permanent. You are no longer a victim of your mood. You are the architect of your focus. For the Read and Rise audience, this is the ultimate power move. It moves us away from the myth of the tortured artist or the unreliable genius and toward the reality of the disciplined professional. To rise is to realize that your best work shouldn't be an accident. By building your own trigger, you reclaim authority over your mind. You learn that the gap between ordinary and extraordinary is a bridge that you can build yourself, one routine at a time. The grand conclusion: the art as the destination. As we conclude our journey through The Art of Learning, we realize that Josh Waitzkin is not just teaching us how to win at chess or martial arts, he is teaching us how to live a life of quality. He shows us that the pursuit of excellence is a spiritual path, one that requires us to be humble enough to lose, disciplined enough to master the basics, and brave enough to face our own internal weather. Mastery is not about the trophy at the end, it is about the person you become during the process. It is about the unobstructed self, a state where there is no gap between your intent and your action. The art of learning is the art of living deeply. It is the realization that every challenge is an opportunity to grow, and every plateau is a chance to go deeper. As you step away from this summary, don't just look for a hack to get better faster. Look for the depth in what you are already doing. Invest in your losses, soften your zone, and make your circles smaller. The path to the top is narrow, but the view from the summit of self-mastery is unlike anything else in the world. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive at Read and Rise. If Waitzkin's journey has inspired you to master your own craft, let us know in the comments. What is the one skill you are committed to mastering this year? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join our mission of constant elevation. Keep reading, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep rising. We'll see you in the next chapter of greatness.